Well, basically, I got a phone call from Alpine Helicopters one day to say they'd be calling through Taupo where I live the following day, and they'd like to meet me, and they just rang me to see if I could think about it overnight and to see if I was available for a trip to the States to purchase a Mustang. And I knew it was a strange venture. I guess I got asked because I have been to the States on occasions involving the aircraft, and I do work for Alpine Helicopters on a contract basis, and I guess because of my background and the knowledge of me, the opportunity arose. So I thought, here we go. They're not readily available, and of course you're dealing with a 40-year-old aeroplane. So I spent about 2 weeks extensively travelling in Australia and the States researching the aircraft as such and the people involved in the activity, which was as much a major thing as the actual aircraft, before I actually went looking at aircraft for sale. Well, I actually came back from the States empty-handed on the first trip after just over 3 weeks. I hadn't found an aircraft that met what I felt we needed in New Zealand. I'd made sufficient contacts, the important contacts. I'd found out the important information, and I felt that I could stay there for 3 months and be no further ahead in terms of just talking to people. So I came back and we pursued it from this end with people over there looking for us, and we actually got off this aircraft about 3 or 4 weeks after I returned.
No, they just bring up the want the implant.
P-51 is one of the classic World War II fighter aircraft, and apart from the fact that it was operated by the territorial squadrons in the RNZAF, it earned quite a reputation in Europe as being pretty fast and an incredible range for supporting the bombing raids on Germany itself. And it had quite a history in the Korean War as well. It was flown by the Australians there, and it was a pity to see all the aircraft that we did have here in New Zealand disappear. So it's a great shot in the arm for the organisation for this aircraft to arrive here and be made available to support us. And the Mustang is a beautiful looking aeroplane, and it flies just the same way. It's a delight to handle. It's very light on the controls. A lot of power there, of course, with just under 1,600 horsepower. And very sleek, you know, it gets through the air pretty fast at about 400 knots. So it's a beautiful aeroplane to fly.
As a restored aircraft, one that's 40 years old, what would you say its condition is like now?
Well, I'd say it's probably better than most commercial aircraft flying around New Zealand at the moment. In fact, it's in mint condition. Everything that may have looked worn has been replaced, and it's got many years of life left in it.
What about the generosity then of Alpine Helicopters in making this available to your society?
Well, absolutely tremendous. 6 months ago it would have been unbelievable, but to actually see the aircraft here and having flown it, it's a tremendous asset to have it here.
That's the crowd, that's great.
Takes us back 30 years.
Yes, and makes your hair stand on end a bit when you hear the music of that Merlin. It's magnificent.
The Mustang was a high-performance aircraft. Of course, it was designed to escort the Flying Fortress all the way to Berlin and back from England, and a very long-range fighter. I sat in the back seat and with John Dilley, and we went on a flight last Thursday, and it was sort of a trip back in time by 30 years. I must say that I was a bit worried about the G-forces. You know, I'm over 60 now, and I wondered how I'd take 6G, and I was greying out once or twice, and we did a bit of a low trip out near Lincoln, and came out of a loop and did a couple of upward rolls, and I certainly greyed out a bit there, and John looked back and sort of said like this, and I went like this, and I think he was quite glad that the old fella behind hadn't really gone sour on him.
Check that the seat's locked, rudder pedals are suitably adjusted for the pilot's length of his leg. It would be very embarrassing if you discovered you couldn't apply full right rudder on takeoff because of quite a strong swing to the left when on full engine power. But for the pre-start checks, we start down here on the left side and check that the flap lever is in the up position. Carburetor and hot air heat controls are in the forward position for fully rammed air to the carburetor and cold air to the carburetor. Up here to the rudder, elevator and aileron trims, we check that the rudder trim is in the full right position. For takeoff, the elevator trim is set to 2 degrees nose down, the aileron trim is set to 0. Down to the undercarriage handle and ensure that it's locked firmly into the detent. Up here to the throttle quadrant, push the throttle lever to start. The mixture is in idle cutoff. We just back off the mixture and throttle friction nut slightly so that we can actually move the controls easily. Check that the pitch control is fully forward. Down to the front, we select, in this case, the left main fuel tank for the start, and check that the emergency gear release handle is in the in position. Up to the instruments, we check that the instruments all have a reading suitable to our present state, which is we're stationary, so there should be no airspeed checking on any of the dials. Check that the altimeters are set to the airfield altitude above sea level, in this case 110 feet. The engine instruments are normal, the radios are off for the engine start, and over on the right side of the cockpit, check that all the switches are initially off and that all the circuit breakers are suitably in. Just before we actually go to the engine start, we'll check that the brakes are parked. Pull out the park brake and turn the, we have external power which gives us power to the airframe. If we were using the airplane battery, we'd turn the battery switch to on. Check the generators on, fuel boosters on, and prime the engine as a cold start, about 8 seconds on the electric prime.
This is the V12 Packard Merlin, which is basically the same as the Rolls-Royce Merlin right through all its marks. Its setup is different to Mosquito or anything along that line, mainly because oil tank back there, two-stage supercharger housing, battery tucked up there out of the road. There's a difference in magnetos, difference in plumbing, main coolant line from the header tank, oil filter, and the oil regulating valve. Basically, plumbed up quite neat. The ventilation tube for the engine is here, which has been slightly modified so it doesn't spill oil out where it used to come out through the side here and straight down the side in a big oily streak. Yeah, the armour plating has been removed, mainly to protect it from oncoming fire, which passed through the spinner, wouldn't puncture the header tank. So that has been removed, especially as a weight-saving device these days. Accessories are mounted on the front of the engine, 2 of them. The vacuum and the vacuum pump and the governor. The tropical air intakes are situated in here. They're removed by 2 wing nuts and they're taken out. They're not used in the conditions that New Zealand's got. The end of each day's flying, it was a check to make sure that none of the exhausts had come loose, and the favourite practice was either to do that or individually listen to the noise, and if there weren't any dull thuds, well, they weren't falling off. Main air intake is here. They're basically the 4-bladed Hamilton standard propeller. Well, this is virtually the repeat of the other side. The other side of the plumbing, you get your engine, the propeller governor in there, the usual, which are intact, generator, liquid pump. I won't confuse anybody by saying it's anything else. Left-hand mag, all the rest of the plumbing lying in underneath here, together with your main oil strainers, and that's the air intake itself coming in underneath through to the carburetor, which is buried away in the back. And otherwise basically the same, supercharged casings and oil tank. The engine controls here, engine controls sitting right across the back. And that's all for that side. A basic daily look round. I'm showing the fuel selector valve, undercarriage door controls, coming around to the jack for the door, landing lights, undercarriage gear and booster pump.
Like any World War II fighter, they require a lot of maintenance. It's an ongoing thing all the time. For each hour that you fly the aeroplane, you probably spend several days just doing little bits and pieces of maintenance. Nothing major, but little titivating here and there, and keeping the aircraft in pristine condition for display. It's very hard to keep an aircraft like this in pristine condition because the Merlin throws out a lot of oil and various parts of the aircraft get pretty dirty, and you know, this detracts from the appearance of the aircraft as far as the public is concerned. So we spend a lot of time just keeping the aircraft clean and keeping all the Jubilee clips done up. You know, with the amount of vibration there, they tend to loosen off after each flight, and you get coolant leaks, oil leaks, which doesn't enhance the pristine appearance of the airplane. That we like to keep it in that condition. The Mustang that we have here is done up in 3 Territorial Air Force Squadron colours. The aircraft was actually imported from the United States 2 years ago. It's powered by a Rolls-Royce Merlin engine built by Packard under licence in the States. Horsepower is 1,490. It has a 2-stage supercharger, but still plenty of power. It pulls 3,000 RPM at 61 inches of boost, which gives it a lot of grunt on takeoff. Top speed is redlined at 435 knots or 505 miles an hour, and in the high-speed runs I normally try to achieve 400 knots minimum on that first pass past the crowd, and somewhere between 50 and 100 feet. Now this takes me to about 5,000 feet on the initial upward rolls on the aircraft, and from there on I just move into the sequence with the display. You're playing with the power all the time on the Mustang because there's so much boost available to you. It's very easy to have too much speed for the particular manoeuvres that you might want to do. So for each manoeuvre you're either increasing power or decreasing power. The RPMs stay at 3,000, so you don't notice it too much from the ground. The sequence takes about 4 or 5 minutes. I've always worked on the policy that if you spend too long in front of the crowd, they tend to become bored. And you need a cloud base of somewhere around 4,000 feet to complete the full display. The aircraft's an incredibly docile aeroplane for its vintage and power. It has a large 4-bladed propeller on the front there. As soon as you take the power off the aircraft, it slows down relatively quickly. And you get a distinctive popping noise from the exhausts when the engine is back at idle. And in the circuit, we're looking for about 150 knots in the pattern, and across the fence at 100 knots, which is about 115 miles an hour.